On a sweltering summer afternoon, when the sun pressed down on the city like a heavy hand, the world seemed to slow in the haze of heat. In a small house tucked along a tree-lined street, a boy named Min sat by his bedroom window, watching the world outside blur and shimmer. His room was cool, the fan humming softly, a sanctuary from the relentless warmth. Yet, Min felt restless, as if something inside him churned in time with the distant cicadas. He was 16, caught in that turbulent space between childhood and adulthood. School was out for the break, and the days dragged on, each one folding into the next. Min found himself growing distant from his father, Mr. Din, a man of few words and even fewer visible emotions. Mr. Din worked long hours at the local factory, returning home each evening with his shoulders hunched and his shirt stained with sweat. Min never thought much of these things. To him, his father's work was simply a backdrop to his own life, an unchanging part of the household landscape. He had grown used to seeing his father come in quietly, setting his worn lunchbox on the table, moving with a kind of practiced exhaustion. The two exchanged brief greetings, sometimes a nod or a question about school, but their conversations rarely ventured deeper. One Saturday, Min's mother called from the kitchen, asking him to bring his father some water. The request was simple, but Min hesitated, feeling the familiar friction of adolescence. He wanted to be left alone, to lose himself in the world of his phone or the music that filled his headphones. But his mother's voice was insistent, so he sighed, filled a glass, and stepped out onto the back porch. There, he found his father, bent over the small garden they kept behind the house. The air shimmered with heat, and the garden, usually vibrant, now seemed wilted beneath the relentless sun. Mr. Din was weeding, his movements slow but steady, his shirt clinging to his back, stained dark with sweat. The sight struck Min, not for its rarity, but for its ordinariness. The same scene he had witnessed countless times, yet never truly seen. He stood for a moment, watching his father's hands move through the soil, careful and deliberate. The hands were rough, the knuckles scarred from years of work. Min noticed how his father paused every so often to wipe his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of dirt across his forehead. The sweat on his shirt glistened in the sunlight, a silent testimony to his labor. Min cleared his throat, and his father looked up, surprised to see him standing there. He offered the glass, and Mr. Din accepted it with a quiet, "Thank you." For the first time, Min noticed the lines etched into his father's face, lines that seemed deeper in the harsh light. He realized suddenly that he had never truly looked at his father, not as the man who had provided and protected, but as a person who carried burdens and dreams of his own. His father drank the water slowly, each sip a small relief. Min watched as a bead of sweat traced its way down his father's temple, disappearing into the collar of his shirt. The shirt itself was faded, the color washed out by years of sun and soap. But it was clean, neatly pressed that morning. Now it was soaked through, clinging to his father's back and chest, evidence of the effort he poured into even the smallest tasks. There was something deeply human in that moment, something that stirred in Min's chest, a mix of guilt and gratitude, confusion and awe. He remembered times when he had complained about chores or resented his father's silence, interpreting it as indifference. He thought of the times he had wished for more, never realizing how much his father had given, how much he had sacrificed in the quiet, unspoken ways. As the sun shifted, casting long shadows across the yard, Min found himself wanting to bridge the distance between them. He crouched down beside his father, feeling the heat radiate up from the earth. Without a word, he reached for the weeds, pulling them from the soil, his fingers clumsy at first. Mr. Din glanced at him, surprise flickering in his eyes, but he said nothing, only handing Min another handful of weeds to toss aside. They worked in silence, side by side. The only sounds the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the city. For the first time, Min felt the weight of the world his father carried, not just in his arms, but in his heart. He saw how each bead of sweat, each stain on his shirt, was a testament to love, an unspoken promise that he would always provide, always endure, no matter the cost. As the afternoon wore on, Min's shirt too began to show the marks of effort. Sweat darkened the fabric, and dirt clung to his skin. He felt the ache in his back, the sting of the sun on his neck. Yet, there was a quiet satisfaction in the work, a sense of purpose that he had never known before. He glanced at his father, who managed a small, approving smile, a smile that seemed to say more than words ever could. In that moment, Min understood something fundamental. He saw that love was not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it was quiet and steady, revealed in the ordinary acts of living. He realized that his father's silence was not distance, but a different language, one spoken in sweat and sacrifice, in the steadfast presence of a man who showed up day after day. That evening, Min and his father sat on the porch, a gentle breeze cutting through the lingering heat. The garden looked different to Min, alive with possibility. They sipped cool tea, the air fragrant with jasmine. The silence between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was filled with a new understanding, a bond forged in the simple act of working side by side. Min thought of the sweat-stained shirt, the symbol of his father's love. He felt a surge of gratitude, mingled with a quiet resolve to be more present, to see the people around him as they truly were. He wondered how many times he had overlooked the sacrifices of others, mistaking their quiet endurance for indifference. Over the next weeks, Min found himself drawn to his father's side more often. He helped in the garden, learning the rhythm of planting and tending, of nurturing something from the earth. He listened more closely when his father spoke, catching the wisdom hidden in his few words. He began to understand that life was built not in grand gestures, but in the accumulation of small acts, each one laying the foundation for the next. He noticed changes in himself too. He grew more patient, more willing to shoulder responsibility. He started to see his own future with new eyes, recognizing the value of hard work and the quiet pride that came from doing something well. The lessons his father had tried to teach, not through words, but through example, began to take root in his heart. One afternoon, as they finished their work in the garden, Min looked at his father and said, "Thank you." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of all the things he had left unsaid. Mr. Din looked at him, his eyes softening, and nodded. In that moment, no more words were needed. Years later, when Min looked back on that summer, he remembered the sweat on his father's shirt, the way it glistened in the sun, the way it spoke of love without ever needing to say a word. He remembered the moment his own heart had changed, the moment he saw his father not just as a provider, but as a man who loved deeply, quietly, and with unwavering strength. That memory became a touchstone for Min, a reminder that the most profound moments in life are often the simplest. He carried it with him through the challenges and joys of adulthood, striving to live with the same quiet dignity, to give without expectation, and to love in ways both seen and unseen. Whenever he faced hardship, Min recalled the garden, the summer heat, the feel of dirt beneath his nails, and the sight of his father's sweat-stained shirt. He understood then that true strength is measured not by words or grand gestures, but by the willingness to show up, to labor, to love without fanfare. And so the moment a son's heart changed forever was not marked by fireworks or dramatic declarations, but by the quiet, steady presence of a father who gave all he had, day after day, in the most ordinary and extraordinary of ways. The sweat on a shirt, so easily overlooked, became, for Min, the clearest expression of love he had ever known. If these stories and life skills lessons bring you value, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss new content every week. Let's build a positive community together where we all learn to live better, communicate with confidence, and stay strong through life's challenges.